Hey everybody, it's Kneecap here, and in this video I have some more Paladin testing on the 9.2 PTR. The highlight being that the Seraphim bug for the 2-set bonus is fixed. Seraphim, of course, is the talent, and the 2-set bonus is when you benefit from Art of War, you gain Seraphim for 2 seconds. The bug was that if you had already hardcast Seraphim and immediately got a proc of Art of War, your Seraphim would be reduced from 15 seconds down to 2 seconds, which really sucks and made it feel terrible and made it kind of impossible to test. Now, things are working correctly, even if I do believe the actual tier set power is way too low. Things are working correctly, so you can test it out, and I have some of those results here today. Like last time, I did 4 combinations. If you didn't watch the last video, it was basically testing this with the Seraphim bug happening. But in this video, again, I had 4 different combinations. They were different than last time, just based on I'm trying to do my best guess at what's going to be played in 9.2, the spec that's going to be played, the soulbind that's going to be played, stuff like that, right? The legendaries that are going to be played, and so I'm doing my best guess, and I'm kind of simulating those. There are other things that need to be tested as well, and I say simulated, but what's going to happen eventually is we'll be able to simulate this millions of times and get a for sure answer, right? This is one guy's data doing testing. I only have so much time in a day to do things, and I like to have a good sample size, and I do make sure that I fight for a good amount of time on each one as well when I'm testing this out, just so it's not completely lackluster and completely meaningless. So let's go ahead and talk about what I did and what results I got. I made another one of these little graph things here. Again, I'm no graphics person, so don't hate too hard. But you can see the 4 combinations I did here. All of them are going to be DR. That just means Kyrian, Divine Resonance. In 9.2, Divine Resonance just means Kyrian. I'll comment a little bit on Magistrate's Judgment because I did do some Magistrate's Judgment testing on the last video. FV is Final Verdict. 1 minute means Execution Sentence, Seraphim, Final Reckoning, the 1 minute build. If it's not 1 minute, then I, specify the talents that I changed. And this one says Pelagos. FLP is Forge Light Prime. That's the one that summons Brawn, the Soulbind that summons Brawn. When you're not using the 1 minute build, you can use Forge Light Prime. And the less 1 minute stuff you're doing, the more you can use Forge Light Prime, frankly. Pelagos is still decent for it, but it's just Pelagos can become an issue to play just because you're collecting orbs, especially with this tier set bonus where Art of War, you need to melee hit the target that you're hitting, and if you're running out of melee range to collect an orb, that becomes an issue there. So Forge Light Prime has other benefits as well, just with the tier sets. So this is skilled just like last video, skilled just 0 to 1.5. The actual DPS number doesn't matter. What matters is comparatively where they at from each other. So the 1 minute build, this is the most played thing. Execution Sentence, Seraphim, Final Reckoning with Pelagos. As you can see, performed pretty well. I think this is always going to perform pretty well, and I'll be very excited if the second one actually is better because it takes us a little bit away from the 1 minute build, away from collecting orbs and stuff like that. So on this one, we have, again, Final Verdict. All these are Final Verdict as well. Zeal instead of Execution Sentence, and then Forge Light Prime. So Zeal is going to give us more procs for our Art of War because we're going to do more melee attacks. And so that makes it really good. And then you're also Forge Light Prime, so you're not having to run out to collect orbs or anything like that. Sometimes orbs are just out of melee range and you can't hit the boss while you're collecting them. So this one performed very well, and it actually performed even better than what this looks. Now, because I only have limited data, I'm not doing 100 5-minute fights. That's 500 minutes. I don't, have 10 hours to test one thing. So I do keep my outliers in. If I did even 50, let's say, fights, I would probably, and there's one outlier, I would obviously kick that out. But when you're only doing like 10 to 20 fights, I think it's important to keep the outlier in, just because your next 20 could all be closer to the outlier than, where your collected data, where your congregated data is on the fights that you did do. So I think it's important to keep that outlier in just because it could trend lower instead of higher. But if I did take it out, it would be this purple line here for this one would look just much better than the rest. And I hope that is the case, just because I would like just a little bit of a change and not have to play the 1 minute build. And Zeal just feels better with the tier set. And if it's not the best, I think Blizzard should do tuning to make Zeal the best, because it just makes sense with the tier set anyways, for it to be the best. So this was my best result. It also felt really, really good, frankly. Next up, we have the same thing, except for we're switching Final Reckoning at the bottom row to Sanctified Wrath on the bottom row, SW. This was the lowest result I had, and then it kind of went to a middling one. Pretty wide range here, but generally it actually felt very similar to Crusade, which will be the next one at the bottom. Again, the same things, except for Crusade instead of Sanctified Wrath. Very similar to the Sanctified Wrath talent, in my opinion. All of the openers felt pretty much the same. It was the sustained stuff that actually felt better with this one. That's the highest, the DRFV Zeal Forge Light Prime. That's Final Reckoning talent as well. This one did feel the best for sustained damage, so it makes sense that I also got the highest result for it. But all the openers were really good. I don't think your opener is going to be affected much depend on your talent. Obviously, it's going to vary to some degree. I think maybe during the Sanctified Wrath one, I actually had my highest opener, but that doesn't necessarily matter. As you can see, it didn't result in the highest overall DPS by any means. So these are the results I got. I would not be surprised if this ends up being the best single target damage. Divine Resonance, so Kyrian, Final Verdict, Zeal, FLP. Now, I did want to talk a little bit about Magistrate's Judgment and a little bit about Necrolord, since those are things I talked about in the last video. Now, I did mention in a one-off on an update video that I did do some Necrolord testing, and that testing was not going great as far as comparing the numbers to the Kyrian, so I kind of just punted on it. So when that can be simulated a million times, we'll see how Necrolord stacks up in single target, but I do not think it's going to be really in play. That's my opinion. I think it'll be fine for Mythic Plus and Sustained Cleave, but not for single target, straight single target damage. I think we're pretty much just going to be sticking with Kyrian here, and that's why I focused my testing for this video on Kyrian. Magistrate's Judgment, I actually have that on right now. I did do some testing with it on. That's why I have it on. And Magistrate's Judgment, it was not doing as well as it was when Seraphim was broken. I don't know if those things are correlated or whatever. I was having a lot better luck with it. I think more testing needs done with it on for sure, and maybe I'll do that in a separate video. Another 4 combinations with Magistrate's Judgment on. That's definitely something I will look into doing, just because it does have a lot of potential as well to do this. With the Zeal, it feels really good. Like you're constantly spending, you constantly have holy power. It feels really good. I had good results with it on the last video. I was not getting good results, so I kind of just punted on it for now, and maybe I'll look into that in the future. That would be... Again, it would be fun to play with something different. But again, for single target, I'm assuming it's going to be Kyrian, Final Verdict, which you're probably eventually going to want on your chest. I think I have it on my cloak on the PTR here. You probably eventually want it on your chest. And then have your 4-set, and then you'll be good to go there. Yeah, and it'll open up some possible uniqueness of maybe not having to use... the 1 minute trinket from PvP and stuff like that. It'll possibly open up a bunch of things. I want, like I said, the more we can get off the 1 minute build, the happier I'll be. I've been fine playing it, but I like a little bit of a change throughout the expansion personally. So I would not, I would very much welcome if we got to play some different talents for optimized stuff. I do get some questions about like PvP and stuff like that, even though that's not what this is really about. I think PvP is going to be more of the same, right? Again, like I said, the openers are really, really good. The overall damage, by my numbers that we're gaining from the legendary plus the tier sets, is like 12 or 13% from 9.1 to 9.2 or 9.1.5 to 9.2. About 15%, or not 15, 12 or 13% damage is what I'm getting. I don't know if that's accurate, but and I haven't done enough, testing to say, oh, I know exactly the percent gain the tier sets give you. But people, I know that the generalized statement that the legendary gives us about 7%. So that would mean that the tier set's giving us like 5 or 6%, which kind of tracks in my opinion. So we'll see on that. So your overall damage isn't getting buffed like a ton, but like I said, the openers are still really, really good. They're still quite high. I'm doing this with no buffs, not to, I don't want to I'm not going to have one buff for one thing, one buff, not a buff for another thing. Obviously doing it with every buff would be more optimal, but I'm not going to go get drums and, try to do all that. So I'm not going to do all that. So I just do it with no buffs at all. And I will say some of my openers, I'm going over 20k with like I said, absolutely no buffs whatsoever. So you still can do quite a big chunk of damage. So as far as arena goes, right, I still think like the one shot stuff's still going to happen for Ret. I think that'll pretty much stay very similar to how it is now. I think obviously since we're not getting that much stronger, I think some defensive classes will be able to handle the burst a little bit better in PvP, but I think the burst will still exist. Now, if they're able to handle it way easier, then all of a sudden it becomes an issue. But if I had to predict, I would just say it'll be extremely similar unless they do some sort of PvP nerfs to Ret. But as it stands now, I'd say it'd be quite similar. When it comes to Mythic Plus, I still think we're going to be quite weak there, unless Necrolord just really hits it out of the park, which again will take a lot of simulating to find out. Necrolord's already pretty good on live servers in Mythic Plus if you are doing everything optimally there. It can already be quite good in Mythic Plus, and I still think it will be good in Mythic Plus. But all the numbers actually say that Kyrian still should be really good because Divine Resonance is good in Mythic Plus as well. But we'll see how that plays out. But I think more of the same in Mythic Plus as well, where we're good, but there's going to be something that's better than us, and they might bring something that's more useful to a Mythic Plus team than us. So I think generally the outlook is pretty bad, if I had to say. It's very similar to where we've been all expansion. I think at the very high end we'll be mid tier, and the possibility that we're very low tier, and it's not great. It's not a great place to be. They could fix this by increasing the power of our tier sets, tuning Divine Resonance back to where it used to be, or tuning Final Verdict stronger, something like that. Just with minor tuning changes to increase something by 3-5%, whatever. I think that could change, but I just don't expect that to happen, right? I don't expect the tuning to happen in that way. So I'm not very high on the outlook. Switch the talents to where I think they'll be there, Final Reckoning. And we'll see when we get more simulations. When 9.2 hits, all the questions will be answered. I'll put out an official 9.2 Ret video. This will probably be, unless something changes, this will probably be the last testing I do. The only caveat being maybe a Magistrate's Judgment video. But until then, probably the next Ret Pally type guide video will be a 9.2 official guide with no speculation or anything like that. Just kind of what the answers are, the answers to the test, if you will. So as always, I do ask you to please subscribe to the channel. It helps me out so much. And other than that, everybody have a good one.